Hi, my name is Cheryl McLaughlin. I want to tell you about another really super fun, creative way of gardening. It's called hydroponic gardening. Now, hydroponic gardening doesn't involve soil for the most part. It involves other things, but think about why you would actually make a garden without soil. There are times where, and places that you live, whether it's in Utah or anywhere around the world, that has contaminated soil. Or here in Utah, if you lived out on the salt flats, you cannot garden with salt. There's different types of problems that you have. And maybe some people just live in a cement area where there is no soil anywhere. So that's one thing. We're going to talk about gardening in this gutter using no soil, no good rich soil. Now, another thing you need to remember is plants need, well, basically they need four things. They need sun, they need water, they need air, and they need some type of nutrients. Now notice the four things that I said, not one of those mentions soil. So you don't have to have soil in order to grow beautiful plants. In order to do hydroponics, the way I've done it before, is you need some kind of a container. We're going to use our gutter container. The next thing is you need a piece of polyester fabric. So it's, you know, that fun 1970s polyester. Find a nice big strip because we're going to put it inside our gutter. Another thing you're going to need are some of these containers that we talked about in another little video. And I have put a little hole. This is going to become a little drip line system. And this is how we're going to feed our plants. And then who would have thought that we are using these little popcorn or styrofoam packaging things for our hydroponic garden. And then I did go to the dump and picked up a bunch of compost. So you could have twigs, you could have pine cones, you can have rocks, you can have anything, but if you don't put something over the top of these little styrofoam, then all these styrofoam with the slightest little wind is going to be blown away. And I'm going to show you how we assemble this. And then we're going to have our plants. So the first thing we're going to do is take our polyester fabric. This is 100% polyester that just wicks really well. As soon as I put water in this, it will spread throughout this entire fabric and it'll get this wet. So it needs to be on the bottom of the container that we're using. The next thing is I had 3 water bottles. I cut off the top. We don't need the top, but before we can use these, we have to just get a little drill and put a little hole. It has to have drainage or our little plants are not going to get fed. So you have to have a tiny, little hole in the bottom. We need to use 3 of these water bottles and we're going to position them just like this. Okay, now on this particular one, we're going to go ahead and put some flowers in here. I have done this and successfully with strawberries. So strawberries are another really great idea to put in. And remember, these plants really will expand, so you don't need to have wall-to-wall plants in here. Okay, so when you're putting the plants in, the most important thing is no matter what it is, whether it's lettuce, so you can't do seed in here, okay? It has to be an actual little plant. The plant has to be sitting directly on the polyester. Okay, directly on the polyester. Now we're going to take the styrofoam, and to keep the plants from falling over, we are going to put this styrofoam all over, and we basically are going to fill all of this, and I'm going to tell you why. Now you could use some other things. You could use pop cans. Just take the pop cans and smash them and put them down here. So it doesn't have to be anything organic, and it's another way that you can use, and I'll tell you what this purpose is for. Now, one of the reasons why we have to have this styrofoam here is we have to hide the polyester. we're going to hide the polyester because when we fill this with water, the little hole in the bottom of this little cup is going to get the polyester wet. And if the air and the wind get on the polyester, it'll dry it out. So we are trying to hide the polyester. That's why you can use pop cans that are squished. Anything that you can just lay in here that will help hide that polyester and keep it nice and moist. So once you've started getting all of this little polyester, all this little styrofoam, and again, make sure your plants are sitting right up against that polyester because they're going to feel the moisture and they are going to get that water from the polyester fabric. So once you have all of this styrofoam, then we have to add something else because again, remember this is super lightweight and it'll just go flying around. So I'm just going to take anything. You could have pine cones. This just happened to be, this isn't really dirt. This is, I mean, any good soil. I mean, you could have anything. But I got to have something on top of this little styrofoam stuff so it doesn't just go flying all over the place. Now, another type of thing that some people call this is they call this lasagna gardening. So we are kind of doing a fun little layer. We have our polyester fabric, we have our styrofoam, little peanut popcorns, packaging materials, and then we have something else to keep that from flying around. So you would go ahead and fill this up, and it's just the coolest thing how this grows. I mean, look at that, how that works there. Okay, so when we water these plants, let's just take any kind of a container here, and the way we water it is not just all over this area. We are going to just go ahead and pour this little cup and watch what happens. This may be kind of slow, but very slow. Yeah, you can see it going down. So very slowly, this water dissipates through that little drip line, and it will get all the polyester wet that is in the bottom of our gutter. And you will do that to all 3 of these containers. Now see, this is why it's so important to have drainage. Otherwise your plants would be drowning. But if you get the right kind of, you know, like a cedar wood or again this type of moss that is on the end, so it will allow the drainage, the excess water will go ahead and drain off. So your plants are not just sitting in all this water. One of the main reasons why we use cedar on the end of this is it is a perfect wood for outdoors. It won't warp, and you know, it's just great for using outdoors year after year after year. And again, make sure you're not using treated wood or wood made from chemicals. So just within the last minute or 2 that we put this water and filled it to the very top, it is almost completely drained. So about once or twice a week, and you can keep an eye on your plants and see how they're doing, but you need to fill this up with water and just water this. But if you have your plants covered with all these little styrofoam peanut popcorn things, it will retain the moisture. It'll keep that sun and wind and air off of it, and it will stay nice and moist. Now once a week, at least once a week, you need to put some type of a good healthy, like Miracle-Gro plant food. This just happens to be a good plant food, fertilizer that just has some good nutrients, because again, the 4 things you need is sun, water, air, and nutrients. So since they're not getting any nutrients from the soil, we've got to feed our plants the nutrients. And so I'll go ahead and add, and you'll just have to look at your plant food that you can buy at Miracle-Gro, but I'll go ahead and add like a teaspoon of nutrients to the water, and I'll mix that with the water, and then I'll go ahead and with the water, the plant food will be mixed in, and that is how these plants get the nutrients. So they get all 4 things. I have them in a nice sunny location. The roots are protected from the wind. So, and it's and this peanut popcorn stuff is nice and light and airy, so the roots have room to kind of grow, and you're getting plenty of water, and you're giving them some good nutrients. And this is just a fun way to garden, especially if you are dealing with contaminated soil or no soil. So remember, I just happen to have some little compost and twigs, so that's what I use. But if you don't have even any compost, something has to hold down this little styrofoam, or honestly it will blow away. So if you had little pea gravel, if you had any type of, you know, something to put on top of this little styrofoam to keep, the most important thing we're doing is keeping that polyester fabric hidden away from the sun and the wind. So something to hold down that. And again, you could have pine needles, anything that, you could have a whole bunch of nuts, nut shells or something, although don't use walnuts, that is toxic to your plants. But any type of little sticks, or again, little gravel, little rocks, something to hold that little styrofoam down with. And again, remember, all your soda pop cans, just smash them down, and you could use those inside this also. So for a couple other really great items, if you didn't want to use the packaging peanuts, again, that's just one option. And if you didn't have any sticks or anything like that, if you have any broken tile laying around, or any clay pots that you can just kind of break down, just kind of smash them and create smaller. The nice thing about these types of things is they have plenty of air pockets. And the most important thing is to cover that polyester fabric. So this is just tile, some ceramic. There's all kinds of ways that you could do this. But there are countries who are very much in need of finding something like this, because all of their soil is contaminated. Whether you live close to home or in a third world country, this is a great way to grow if you don't have soil.